So the scientists were saying, act early, act extensively, act in an informative, advisory, educational manner, and you will control it. Then the economy is trashed, and they say you, health people, are trashing the economy. What they do not want to accept is the economy is trashed because you messed up with the health. Health is trashed, economy is trashed. It is their late inaction that causes all this.
And is this going to be the thin end of the wedge, I wonder, guys? Who wants to comment on that next? Are we going to see more of it?
I think as long as... Sorry.
No, come in.
No, I was going to say, I think they need to stop being so reactive and acting on impulse, because that's the worst time to make decisions. And I think that's the problem that we've got since the pandemic began, that a lot of the orders that are coming from the government seem to be very reactive and oftentimes impulsive, at the detriment of patients and the public.
But it caught everyone on the hop, didn't it? It was seeing a report out today that Britain, for instance, was not prepared for this at all. It didn't have sufficient plans in place for something like a pandemic hitting. I mean, everyone had to catch up on their feet here, didn't they? But I wonder whether the public's... I'll put this to you, Robert. I wonder if the public's patience with this is now fast waning, because, of course, we're going to see more pressure to get vaccinated for those people who haven't been vaccinated for whatever reason yet, aren't we, Robert?
Well, it's really interesting. The last time the three of us were together, we were talking about with scenes of people protesting behind us, not wanting to be mandated to be vaccinated. But the question is, where are the rest of the people? Where are the people who have been vaccinated, but they're out shopping, right? I mean, so this is also capitalism taking control once again, where we're saying we're giving politicians a clean slate to say, go ahead and do what you need to do because the economy matters the most. But we're also dealing with issues of Brexit and no lorry drivers. We have so many different components here where politicians just haven't been on the cutting edge, on the front end of any of this.
So as a medic, Barrett, where do you go around persuading people that are saying, look, we're a couple of years into this now, our lives have been put on hold, we've not been on holiday, we haven't seen our friends, and for instance, I've not been back to Italy, where I live sometimes, for 24 months now. Small thing, but it's a long time, it's nearly 2 years, mounts up. People who've had their vaccinations are going to say, no, we've had enough of this. How, as a medic, do you persuade them to carry on and look after themselves, have these boosters that they're supposed to have now as well, of course, more and more, and how are you going to persuade the unpersuaded so far that haven't been vaccinated that it's the only way forward, the medics say? How are you going to do it?
It's easy. It's easier than we think. So first thing you've got to do is advise, inform, educate, reassure. Second thing, you have to get that message out. And that message is very clear. To manage with COVID, it has to be a multi-layered operation. It was never a one silver bullet solution. It does not work with just the vaccines. So the multi-layered approach is as follows. Wear your mask, wear a good quality mask, wear it properly. Get yourself immunized. Get yourself immunized against seasonal influenza. Finally, have good ventilation. And finally, I promise you, good times will occur. Good times will come. But what we've got to do is...
Well, we're told
that.
That's the first lockdown, though. That's the problem. That's why the politicians are floundering now.
Well, I know, but they messed it up. If they had acted a lot earlier, the world would have been in a better place. The other thing is the European Union politicians refused the offer from President Joe Biden to relax the patents on vaccine manufacture so that the vaccines could be manufactured at scale and be given to people in Africa and other places and subdue the infections globally. If you don't subdue the infections globally, this will continue. It is the fault of politicians in their small, narrow window that they operate in.
Yeah, Naomi, given the fact that every country had to get on with it itself, the WHO has given its guidance, of course, but there were so many mixed messages as well. There was confusion if you were vaccinated. Could you nonetheless still spread on the infection and be asymptomatic and not know? That's the awful thing about COVID. So many mixed messages, and the education doesn't still, even now as we're heading maybe into a fourth, fifth wave around the world, still doesn't seem clear. Who should be, Naomi, in your view, making this message clear?
I think, like you say, it's just so much confusion going on. And in the midst of the confusion, obviously, we're risking losing more people to this new wave. But like I said, I think it's very important that somebody takes stock and stop being so impulsive. You know, this recent this recent rule now where all nurses, where we have to be vaccinated mandatory. Again, that's just adding to the mix, because what's going on.
Yeah, but that goes back to what I said just now. Again, these mixed messages. If I'm an elderly patient, well, I'm getting on anyway. But if I was an elderly infirm patient, or for any reason could be susceptible to COVID where it could kill me, I would like to know that the healthcare professional that I've entrusted my life to is not going to, without knowing it, being unvaccinated, pass on the virus to me. But again, it goes back. Even if you've been vaccinated, could you still pass it on? I don't know.
Pass it on. It's a confusion.
That's why you take a multi-layered approach.
Barrett, yeah, more.
Sorry, that is why you take the multi-layered approach, which is you're immunized and you wear a mask, and you wear a good quality mask, wear it properly. It's a multi-layered approach. It has to be that way.
I want to come back to Naomi to talk about the medical professionals and whether or not you should be vaccinated or not. What do you think about that point? Remind me, Barrett.
Oh, absolutely. In a clinical setting, you're working with extremely vulnerable people whom you may infect without knowing about it. So when you're working in a sensitive place like that, I'm so sorry, you have to be immunized.
Goes with the territory. Naomi, yes or no?
But I don't think it's quite fair to specifically choose a section of the medical profession to say, you know, that it should be mandatory. Like, how is it mandatory when there's so much confusion going on? Because a lot of people...
Well, you're the guys that should know, because you're working in the medical profession. I suppose we all, us non-medics, look to you to do the best practice, to do the best possible thing.
We do the best thing for our patients, but the problem is the guidance that we get given changes week by week. It's too confusion. Just as we get used to one set of new rules and new policies, something else comes out which contradicts that. So it's not only the patient that suffers, also us who are working within the environment. It's confusion. Do they actually know do they know what they're telling us? Where is this guidance coming from? And furthermore, who is giving them the go-ahead to make these drastic changes that affect all of us? And that's deeply worrying.
Yeah, Robert, we're in Europe heading into a bleak winter, as you're saying. There's so many things to worry about. Gas prices are going up. COVID seems to be coming back for a fifth time. And yet we're still getting mixed messages from the politicians. What's going to happen as we head into a new year, maybe go into a sixth, a seventh wave of this? The public, what do you think the public are going to do?
Well, I think there are two things that I really want us to think about here as we try and push back to normal. First off, normal wasn't that great for everybody. And so I know that all these things we're talking about are important and we want to get on with our lives, but normal wasn't great for people experiencing homelessness. It wasn't great for people experiencing racism. These are things that are continuing to exist. So if we go back to normal, we need to be careful not to go back to what was some sort of nostalgia. And I also think we need employers, universities, big places that bring in lots of people into city centers to remember that there's going to be a social return here, that people are going to have some anxieties, that people aren't going to be able to or want to return. We're talking about the great removal of people from offices. People are resigning left and right because they're getting back to not a work-life balance, but a life-work balance. And we need to remember two things. Remember, nostalgia is not always a good thing. The normal wasn't great. Let's not go back to normal, number one. And number two, we need some time.